something to kindle the fire. And this indeed is their destruction. This is their destruction. Small things. Beware of the small things. So it was said, in regards to these small things, that Ibn Mas'ud mentioned what? In regards to these small things, that the believer, he treats his dhunub, the sins, he treats these sins like a mountain that is about to fall upon him. But as for the one who is an evil individual, as for the one who is an evil individual, a wicked person, whether it be male or female, whether they are wearing jilbab and whether they're wearing niqab, whether they have the lihya that is down to their chest, whether they have their clothes above their ankles, they may be an evil individual in regards to innovation, into sin that nobody sees. That individual, or even the most evil individual from the disbelievers, they are individuals when sins, they see their sins like a fly in front of them, so they just brush it off their nose like nothing. You know, when the fly comes down and sits down, he brushes it away like nothing, like it's la bats bihi, nothing, because the shaitan has come and tricked him in regards to his sins. Sheikh Fawzan mentioned in commentaries to that book, Qawaid al-Arba'a, the four principles, he mentioned in regards to sin, he mentioned when Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab mentioned in the Muqaddamah introduction, and he says, may Allah make you an individual that when he sins, he seeks forgiveness. So he mentions, as for the one that sins and does not seek forgiveness, then he only increases in that sin, and he becomes in despair with the mercy of Allah. He is denying Allah's name, that Allah is a Ghafur Rahim. He is denying it. Because why? He despairs in Allah's mercy. He denies the fact that Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He continues to do it. So he sees that there's no way out. That's why when you see the individual, first they start with something minor. First it starts something minor. First it may start something off the tongue. It may start as a thought. The individual has a thought in his head. I don't like the brothers. So he starts on top of that, I don't like the sisters. Who do they think they are? Who do they think they are? Who do they think she is? Who do they think he is? Then it starts to manifest upon the tongue. Then it manifests upon the limbs. So maybe they start to oppress and be aggressive to that individual. And so it goes on and goes on and goes on. So that individual breaks off. That's the individual that breaks off. Not the one that they're oppressing, because there is no hijab, there is no barrier between the one who is oppressed on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no barrier for the individual who is oppressed. So if we are oppressed in any way, then let us raise our hands. Let us not despair in Allah's rahmah, in Allah's mercy, that Allah is the one that will have mercy upon the one who is being oppressed. So we have the individual that he increases in seeking forgiveness, and when he commits a sin, he makes tawbah and he refrains away from that sin. He makes tawbah and he has that hazard in his heart from that thing. For example, if an individual, a brother, he disrespects a brother, or the wife disrespects her husband, she disrespects her husband, or she commits a sin to her husband, or a form of disobedience to her husband, then we know from the adab and the akhlaq, or the manner from that woman, is that she takes her husband's hand in her hand and says, I will not sleep until you are happy with me. Or the brother is oppressive to his wife, and he takes away, and he finds that he's oppressive. Then he finds out, he comes in that he's been oppressive, he rectifies that thing. He rectifies it. He feels some hazard, he feels some pain and sorrow in his heart. What he has done to his wife, what she has done to him, what the child has done to the father. They reflect. If this is in regards to mankind, then what about to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What about in regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The one who has given you all that you see around you, the one who deserves to be worshipped, the one who deserves to be praised, the one who deserves to be obeyed. If you sit down and think, when you sit down and think to yourself, then someone violates you or lies to you, and you feel that pain and you feel that sorrow, and you cry and say, why has this person done this to me? Why do they continue to do this to me? Why do they carry on being aggressive and being this way to me? And you feel it in your heart. Then what about the pain, or what about the things that we feel in regards to ourselves? Then what about those things that we do in regards to Allah's rights? What about the things that we do in regards to Allah's rights, after Allah has given us all of these things, and we continue to disobey, and we continue to turn away, and we continue to make excuses, and we continue to turn our back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who loves us, the one who has given us, the one who has given us all that we see around us? When you never had no child, ya akhi, Allah blessed you with a child. When you never had no wealth, Allah gave you a job that you didn't think you could have in halal. Those things that are halal, and you made living. When you wake up in the morning, your baby is crying, and you can come home and you can give something for them, and you can feed them, and they're not malnutrition, and you can breathe, and you can walk, and you can do the things that you have, and you can give them wealth, and all these things that Allah has given you, and still when you fall short, and still when you sin, and still when you turn your back to Allah, there is no returning and making tawbah. There is no tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that has driven you all of this. That if He chose, He could cut your jugular vein like that and finish your life if He chose to. He could end your life. He could take away your sight. He could take away our hearing. He could take away our speech. He could take away our means of wealth. If He chose to, He could take us from this land and throw us somewhere else in some other land. He could put us in a land where there's no water upon the earth, where there's no wealth, where there's no health, where there's sickness. But Allah has given you what you see around you. Should you not be thankful for what Allah has given you? Is that not the thing that should drive us when we stand in salah? We stand with having some khushu with Allah, some humility, rather than having humility in front of one another and seeking not to walking like we're treading on broken shells around people, like we're walking around broken shells around people. SubhanAllah. These people that can do what? They cannot give you life and they cannot give you death. They cannot take away anything from you. They're a minute equation to what Allah says. If the whole of mankind was to come and give you something, to increase you in something, never could they do it except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if they were to remove something from you and commit harm to you, never could they do it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to do that thing. They're minute, yet we walk around. Akhi, I didn't mean to offend you, Akhi. Taib Labat is good. We're good with one another. And we have good communication and relations with one another. But let us not forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the relationship that an individual should have with Allah. A relationship that an individual should have with Allah. Because that controls or that determines everything else. Because why? If the heart is sound and correct, everything else is sound and correct. If the heart is in obedience to Allah, let us not just read the hadith and say, MashaAllah, there's a piece of flesh. SubhanAllah, we've heard it how many times? Yeah, we heard the hadith. Let us sit down and ponder. This piece of flesh, if it's corrupt, everything else is corrupt. Everything else. You'll want to watch TV. You'll want to watch movies. You'll want to listen to music. You'll want to chase women. The women will want to look at men. They'll be pleasing to them. It will be pleasing to them. Sin will be pleasing to them. And that heart will be what? Allah will increase them, as Allah mentioned. We will increase them in that sin. Increase them in that dalala. And they will go far, far astray. Far astray. That an individual, when his heart is like that, he'll only want to speak that which is evil. He'll only want to hear that which is evil. He won't want to be around you. You'll know the difference. He won't want to be around you because you're too good for him. You're too on the ball with things in his eyes, in her eyes. You don't talk about the things I want to talk about. She's itching to say what was on TV last night. He's itching to see what have you going to the latest movie. And if you only mention it, you'll be in the cinema house with him, beard tucked in and everything, wearing hoodie tops and beard tucked in, knowing that it's wrong. Knowing that it's wrong. Walking around music in your ears like nobody else can hear. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees and Allah hears everything. Walking around, music in their ears. And then you see it manifest on their walk. People walking, boxing, walking, nodding their heads. Is that Quran? And even then we're not sitting there nodding our heads to Quran and walking and marching around. No, something else is going in their ears and it's increasing them in their sin with their heart. But they don't make the tawbah. So the shaitan comes to them, as Sheikh Fawzan mentions, that the individual, he says, whoever and every one of us sins, but we should make tawbah. And he mentions that one of us is exempt from committing sin. But the best of them are those who make tawbah, those who return to tawbah. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened the door of tawbah. So it is upon the servant that when he sins, that he is immediate, he has an immediate yubadir, he has he immediately makes seeks tawbah. He immediately thinking of another word to express that if an individual makes this tawbah, he doesn't lie down on it. He doesn't sleep on it. Like the individual that is diabetic or is sick. And subhanAllah, I haven't took my 5 o'clock medicine and it's 7 o'clock. He's lying in bed. He's not going to say, I'll just leave it till tomorrow.